can't you import tea from Kenya? Why can't you import tea from Uganda? Why can't we import cocoa from Ghana? Why can't we import leather from Nigeria? Why can't we import cotton from Malawi? Why can't we import chicken and beef from Botswana? Because if we do so, we'll create jobs in the continent of Africa, and nobody will run away to Europe and America.
Of course, it's a combination of factors, but evidence available tells us that young Africans prefer to leave their countries in search of what they describe as greener pastures, because politicians in many African countries conduct themselves in a manner that creates environments that are toxic to the realization of the desired goals. When you see a young graduate leaving Nigeria or Ghana or Sudan, it is because the environment is been poisoned. And why is it poisoned? The policy is implemented to not allow for the creation of opportunities. In certain cases, there are conflicts, and we know quite a number of them. In Sudan now, there are conflicts. In the northern part of the Sahel, there are conflicts. Therefore, it is the politics of the day that creates environments which do not enable circumstances to arise that give young people confidence that they can do well in their countries. And let us be very clear. We are not saying for one moment that migration in and of itself is undesirable. What we are talking about is irregular migration, where young men and women are crossing the Sahara Desert and in an attempt to get to Europe and America get drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. Some of them even go to the Caribbean and try to get into the United States of America or even into Asia. So there are a combination of factors. But I say that the mother of all factors is that in many African countries, the kind of politics that we engage in is not enabling. I call it the absence of political hygiene. And until the day that we get our politics right, so that we have agriculture that is working, so that we have industrialization, so that we have an environment where science and technology is deployed, and people believe that they can fulfill themselves in their countries and earn a living, we are going to continue to have young men and women who are dissatisfied trying to run away from the continent. There is the assumption that people are retained simply because they are in employment and they are properly compensated. That is just one limb of the solution. We've got to remember that we've got to create an environment where people can invent and innovate. When we talk about invention and innovation, we are talking about creation of employment opportunities. But if you want a doctor in Nigeria, for example, to work here in Nigeria, you must compensate them properly. I remember several years ago, I went to Austria, and there was a lady from Zimbabwe, and I said, go back home, go back home. I was waxing eloquent. But she said, when I'm at home, my salary is the equivalent of 50 United States dollars per month. Should I go home? I said, no, don't. Because the reality is that you want to pay school fees.
Yes.
You've got to pay people salaries that can make them survive. But in the same countries, look at the compensation levels for elected politicians, most of whom are not qualified. And you look at the compensation for professionals, is worlds apart. And when young people see this, they say, this is not the place to stay. I'd better be flipping hamburger in the United States of America or working in a geriatric home in Canada than to stay at home. So what is the message? The message is, create an environment where those who choose to be employed will be properly compensated. Number two, create an environment where those who choose to invent and innovate can invent and innovate, which means you've got to have energy. You cannot be generating power 5,000 megawatts and you think you are going to industrialize. Create an environment where I can add value in agriculture so that I'm not importing milk, so that I'm not importing sugar, so that I'm not importing things that I can make at home. When you do that, then you retain young people because they can fulfill themselves.
Professor Lumumba, you're very vocal about social and political challenges and African leaders. Let me ask you, do you think that African leaders do not understand the severity of the crisis, or they just don't care?
They don't care. Most of them don't care. They understand. These are some of the people in leadership in Africa are people who know. When you hear them articulate the positions during campaign, when you see their party manifestos, they promise you heaven on earth. But immediately they get into office, I don't know which devil occupies the minds of these individuals. They begin to do exactly the opposite, and exactly the opposite of what is desired. And I want to say that African politicians, the bulk of them, are interested in grand projects which are full of drama without affecting the lives of people in a sustainable way. And until the day that the African politician realizes that they hold positions of trust, which gives them the honor and privilege of using public finances to improve the quality of people's lives, what we'll be seeing is that from election to election we see drama. And when we are seeking public office, we see drama. But people's lives don't change. And permit me a comparison. Look at what countries which were at war very recently have achieved in the last 30 years. Look at Vietnam. Look at Malaysia, which was not at war but has achieved much. Look at Singapore. Look at the Scandinavian countries. Look at Indonesia. Look at Dubai, which has now become the mecca for many African politicians and civil servants. What was there? Clarity of vision, clarity of policy, and the desire to fulfill in order to improve the quality of people's lives. But in our part of the world, on average, we are underachieving and underperforming, and the people must also be blamed. The African electorate on average has a very low level of satisfaction. When we are voting because somebody has given us a bag of rice, an insult. We are voting because somebody is from my religion or because somebody is from my tribe. But when you go to other parts of the world, people are being voted into office because that individual or that party has a program that is going to create employment, that is going to improve health, that is going to improve industrialization, that is going to improve agriculture, that is going to ensure that there is security. So the African problem is a combination of politicians and an electorate that are not looking for the benefit of the society.
But given the level of poverty and how it's been weaponized, can we really blame the African people for this?
Oh, we must.
To what
blame
extent
them.
do we blame them?
We are not the only population in the world to ever have been impoverished.
Indeed.
All these others, when you talk of Asia, when you talk of America, it is during periods of poverty that they rose when you look at the revolution. So poverty is not an excuse.
Indeed.